Yes, my name is Jenn Dimeck. I'm with Foresee Financial and Accounting, and today we're going to be talking about the COVID-19 MBA. And I don't know about you guys, but here we go. Can you guys see my screen? Yes? Great. Okay. The COVID-19 has taught us a lot of lessons, and so I want to go through those and make sure that you guys kind of understand where your role is in helping your organizations be bigger and better and more prepared for whatever comes next. So let's keep going here. So here's our lovely team. We have a team of 5 strong, capable women, and YNPN plays a very big, important role in our history. And I know that many of you guys already know how Jill and I met. And so we're very, very proud of being part of this conference today. So this is what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about how we got here, some lessons learned, how we're going to move forward to be not just different, but better. And when we talk about how we got here, you know, a lot of people call this unprecedented, like we've never seen this before, this virus, this pandemic. And while the health emergency, the public health emergency is absolutely unprecedented, you know, the economic downturn that we've had, I think we could have seen coming. So, you know, a few quotes that I love regarding the economy is, you know, what goes up must come down, from Isaac Newton. It's not specifically about the economy, but it works. Failing to plan is planning to fail, from Ben Franklin. And then a little more modern, recessions come when optimism reaches its peak. And so I know that you're probably questioning, I'm in a nonprofit, why am I so concerned about small businesses? Well, let me tell you that small businesses, just like Thomas talked about, are the ones who are building value in our economy. They are your donors, and watching trends in the small business economy will help you see and foresee economic change. So consumer spending. When we talk about what's going up, these are a few tipping points of economic expansion. And these are the things to kind of watch really closely to prepare for the next recession. And then alternatively, the upswing in the current one that we're in. So consumer spending, you know, we are making more money than ever. There's a lot of customers, there's a lot of movement inside the economy, and requiring small businesses to have more inventory and bigger teams to service all of us. And that increase in inventory requires them to have more capital. And then we as consumers want more and more and more. And so we are looking to even small businesses to give us credit. Like, we want it now, we'll pay for it later. We've also seen in this expansion, and this has been the longest expansion in our economic history, low unemployment. And so while right now we have a very high unemployment, before COVID, we have a low unemployment, and that really drives wages higher because there's more competition in the market. So what are some pitfalls? Like, we all felt really good before this happened, right? We were running right along and making investments and doing some things. And, you know, when things are really good, we often get lulled into some complacency. So here are a couple of pitfalls of the expansion. One, we're too optimistic to create a reserve. How many of you had a personal emergency fund before this happened? And how many of you know of your organizations have a reserve fund, you know, even more than 30 days that they could have pulled from? In a great market, often you see low interest rates. Low interest rates makes debt really attractive. So, you know, we want more. And so in order to get more, we have to have the funds, and maybe we go to the bank and borrow them because, you know, that money is cheaper than probably what I'm making in the, you know, it's better than what I'm making in the market right now, so let's pull it out and let's put it in debt. So there's also no pressure to create any kind of business continuity plans. When things are good, we think they're going to be good forever. And so why take the time to plan for some impending disaster that doesn't seem like it's going to be coming? And so just like Ben Franklin said, failing to plan is planning to fail. And so we now have that pressure, and we need that continuity plan that we don't have. So what goes up must come down. Isaac Newton said it best. Was this economic downturn really unprecedented? Was it one of those things that we didn't see coming? So I don't know if many of you read Forbes. It's a great thing for even young professionals to learn about what's going on in the business world around you. And in a Forbes article in June of 2019, the Fed said that the probability of a recession within the next 12 months was 64%. Here we are, folks, 12 months later in a recession. So was it kickstarted by the virus and the pandemic? Yes, it was kickstarted by that. But the likelihood of it still happening even without this was really high. So again, keeping your eye on the trends in the marketplace will help you prepare for the next one that comes, because it will come. So what are some things that we've learned in this crisis? And every crisis gives us an opportunity to learn, to pivot, and to come out stronger. I'll give you an example, a personal example. In 2009, I was still living in Tennessee, and I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And it was really bad. I was bedbound and then wheelchair bound for about 2 years. And during that time, before I got that diagnosis, I was at the top of my game. I was the youngest female CFO in Nashville of a large financial services company that was regional, not just statewide, but regional. And I was making more money than any 25-year-old should have been making. I mean, it was ridiculous. So this diagnosis, this crisis hit in my life, and I couldn't work anymore. Now, I planned for this. I had some insurance. I had some other things going that helped my family through that. But on the other side, when I got out of the wheelchair and when I got out of the bed, I knew that I had to pivot. I had to change my identity. I had to change my work to compensate for this disease. And I did. That was the birth of my company. That was the birth of remote work before remote work was cool. So, we can learn from this crisis, or we can struggle through it and then struggle through the next one. So some of the lessons that I think all of us have learned is that technology is empowering. It's inexpensive, it's everywhere, and it has enabled us to do all kinds of new work. This is the first virtual conference that YNPN Phx has ever put on. And it's fantastic. And we're reaching people well beyond our borders that we would have never reached before. The other one is, the lesson is learned that you plan before you actually need a plan. You plan. You practice the plan. You plan, and the cycle goes back again. You practice the plan, you plan. You practice the plan, you plan. And that is the way that when crisis hits, none of you will be caught off guard. The third one is cash is king. Now, we're accountants. I would be remiss if I did not talk about money. Cash is king. 3 to 6 months of operating capital will usually help you through a crisis, a short-lived crisis. But when the storm is coming, and we believe that we're on the brink of this storm, then 12 months will help you weather that storm. So whatever comes, however you need to pivot, whatever the next investment needs to be, you will be ready. The last one is being creative. So flexibility creates opportunity. And you have now the opportunity to meet your clients and your customers and those that you serve and your donors where they are. They're in their homes. They are on the internet. They are in front of their television. They are with their kids. So you get to leverage your talented staff, and many of you are those talented people, to deliver your services and to meet your donors in brand new ways. So I want to ask you guys a question. Now, I'm the tech geek of our firm. I love it. Tell me what new technologies that you're using now that were not part of your work life before. Slack, great. Jamboards, I've not heard of that one, so I'm going to have to check that one out. Anybody else? What are you using now? Skype and Zoom, obviously. My company uses Teams, TikTok, that's awesome. Zoom, Trello, and Asana. So a lot of you are now using project management services that you've never used before to keep all of your team coordinated. Teams, that's what we use. Idea Flip, this is great. Marco Polo, there's so many, and so many of them are free. Like, it's ridiculous. So take some time, do a little research, and get your organization to just test some things out. You never know what you might find, and get creative on using. So how do we move forward? Learning needs to create action in order for it to be valuable. So in order for us to come out stronger and more prepared, we need to maybe change our plans and maybe even the culture of our organization. Like, I think this is going to upset the cultures of so many organizations in the best of ways. So here's 4 things that we can take action on in order to move forward and come out stronger. 1 is monitoring working capital. Again, cash is king. 2 is being efficient. A lot of times, this remote work will actually create efficiencies where many were afraid that it was going to be a barrier to work. The next one is communicate. In order for this to work well, everyone has to be on the same page. Everyone has to over communicate because we're no longer visible in the same ways we were before. And then again, the last one is pivot. Jill and I said, and I think we may have jinxed 2020, and if so, I'm sorry. Jill and I said in 2019, we give it our year a word. And we decided in 2019 that in 2020, it was going to be the year of pivot. And here we are, pivoting almost every day about something. So being flexible will allow you to do those pivots. Be smart about it. So again, let's talk about working capital. I'm going to go right to left on this slide. So first is days cash on hand. And there's a quote out there, nobody really knows who said it. It's been around forever. That says, revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, but cash is king. And so when we're talking about days cash on hand, it used to be a throwaway measure. Like, it's one of those things that measures how many days can I operate if not a single dollar comes in my door. Who thinks not a single dollar is ever going to come in the door? I mean, you have donors, you probably have recurring gifts. We have an event planned. Like, there's always going to be some dollars coming in the door, right? And then COVID-19 hit. So hello, days cash on hand. Again, this measures how many days, using your average expenses, how many days could you operate if there were no dollars coming in the door? This is a great measure of reserve. The next one is accounts receivable turnover. And I know it might sound strange to you guys, but your organization likely has pledges that are outstanding. So people have promised to donate money over a period of time. You probably have some grants or some contracts that are the kind of, that is reimbursable. A lot of government contracts are like that. So you actually have to put forth the effort, send the government a bill, and so that sits there until the government decides to pay it. So how many times you can collect on that accounts receivable means that you're generating cash for your coffers. And the faster you can collect these, the more cash that you have for your operations. So the last one, I believe, is the most important. It's a lot like days cash on hand, but even more powerful. So I'm going to add to my little quote from above and say that cash might be king, but Luna is God. Luna is liquid, unrestricted net assets. And what this is how many days, and sometimes it's actually measured in months, how many months can I operate on the cash that I have that's unrestricted? And so many, and I'm so proud, I am so proud of our foundations and our philanthropy community, because their response to all of this was unrestricting their grants. Like if you had a grant that was, you know, restricted for a program or was restricted in time, they said, you know what, you use it. We just want you to stay open. If you don't stay open, there's no way you can do this anyway. So unrestricted. And I hope and I pray that this is a lesson that our philanthropic community learns going forward, that most of their funding will now be unrestricted. We wait and see, but hopefully. So liquid unrestricted net assets is really the test. It's really the litmus test for your organization if you're sustainable or not. So the next lesson learned is efficiency. So we as nonprofits are accustomed to doing more with less. Like that's the world that we live in. That's just how we do things. It's how we've always done things. But when times are good, we tend to kind of take our eye off that ball a little bit. Like, it'll be okay, we can do this, or we can try that. And we take our minds and our eyes off efficiency. So a couple of measures, and these are by no means the only measures. I challenge you guys to find something in your work, in your position, where you can measure how efficient you are, whether it's how many times you have to reschedule a meeting, or what's another one? Even, I mean, how many words you type in. All of these are efficiency measures. So one of the ones that a lot of programs use is the cost to serve one person or one family, or whatever your measurement is inside the service, the work that you do. And I just made up a number. This is not a benchmark or anything. I just made up a number. But one thing to note is when that metric rises, it could signal increasing fixed costs like salaries or material costs. So you can kind of see the economic power of that happening as you're serving those that you serve. Another one is conversion rate. So conversion rate can be a lot of different things. You see this a lot in fundraising and marketing. So in marketing, it could be how many clicks on our website before we get a donor, or how many page views until we get a blog reader or something like that. The other one in fundraising is how many touches does it take before we see a donation. So that conversion rate is a great measure of efficiency. And these efficiency measures will help you as an organization, if you're leading a team, or even if you're just part of a team, if you feel overworked, then these efficiency measures for the team could say, look, we have way more to do than people can do it. So if we increased our capacity, we could be more efficient. The next part of this is diversity. And so, you know, we're all very, very conscious of diversity right now, and the power it has to build a healthy organization. It lowers the risk of oppression. It builds a culture that is vibrant and strong. And we can look at diversity in a lot of ways. We can look at people diversity in our staff, in the people we serve, on our boards. But we can also look at diversity from a resource perspective. So do we have all of our eggs in one basket in a technology standpoint? Do we have all of our eggs in one basket or two baskets from a revenue standpoint? And so revenue diversity is what I want to focus on. Revenue diversity means that you have several places that money is coming from, or several efforts that, that's what we're using to get this money. And it's a great hedge against an economic crisis or any other crisis for that matter. So I'll give you some examples. Organizations that rely on government funding, they could be at risk of that funding being cut or eliminated in times of economic crisis because they need funds to do something else. All of this economic stimulus that we've had has to be paid for at some point. So we could be trying to balance, the government could be trying to balance budgets. We could have a party change, and so someone's pet project, if you will, goes away, or just as a part of making a point, the new party comes in and starts to cut funding in some areas. So organizations relying on major gifts are at risk of donors changing their funding priorities. They're at risk of economic change. Somebody's business goes under, or the economy as a whole. Right now we're seeing some stock in the market slide a bit. And so if a donor's pool of funds is heavily invested, then now they have a smaller pool of funds. So you're at risk if you're heavy in that area. You're at risk even if you're over relying on program revenue or event revenue, because here we are, some of us can't do programming at all. Some of us, our programming looks very, very different. And if we did earn program revenue, we're very likely giving it away right now because in this economy, no one can pay for it. So you're really at risk of public emergencies and even natural disasters if you're heavily relying on that kind of revenue. So what's the right balance? And the truth is, there's no right balance. There's no one way that every organization should diversify their revenue. It's really up to you to make those measurements and decide for yourselves what is right for you. And my only suggestion, my only caution is that you balance efficiency with diversity. Sometimes you can be too diverse in that it takes a lot of effort and the effort doesn't return quite what you had hoped. So just be conscious of the effort that it takes to pull these funds in these different areas, but stay flexible, be ready to pivot, and always think outside the box. So the next point I want to make about what we've learned from this pandemic is communication. And I'm really interested to know, how has your communication changed inside your organization? Let me know in the chat box. Is it more frequent? Is it even more intimate, more personal? Has everyone gone dark? Like what has changed in the communication in your organization in response to this pandemic? More frequent? Okay. Weekly check-ins with the entire team, twice a week. That's awesome. It does have to be more intentional. And that is, I think, the major message of this point, is that your communication very much has to be more intentional. I don't know about you guys, but when I lived 15 minutes from my mom and dad in Tennessee, I kid you not, we probably saw each other 6 times a year. My mom and I talk every week now, every week. Like, it's just being intentional. And moving to Arizona was what triggered that. Spending more time with the variety of messaging, that's great. Mass communication and one-on-one conversation balance, that's definitely important. So you know, we talked about technology, and that's obviously what's leveraging our communication right now. We use video all the time, all day long. And we've decided to leverage Microsoft Teams because it's part of our overall technology platform. So this is what we do. We have a really great culture in our company, and we've been remote, 100% remote from the very beginning. My very dear administrative specialist lives in Payson. And then the rest of our team, Jill and I live very close to each other, but the rest of our team is spread between East Valley and West Valley. So it's one of those things that you have to build a culture of intentional communication. We use Teams video to train. I just did a training with a new client yesterday, and I have one again on Friday. We meet with clients on video because we work remotely with them. It's great for them to put faces to names and emails. We use video to educate. So obviously we're doing this conference today. I did several COVID-19 webinars, and you can find those on our website if you're interested. And I did a board financial training last week via video. And all of these have broken down the barriers, the geographic barriers that we would have had if we did not have this medium. So if you haven't put together an intentional communication plan, please take the time to do that. It's very, very important. Okay, this is my favorite part. How are we going to pivot to respond to changing needs? And I'll go through this quickly because I'm running out of time. So this whole thing has forced us to be much more flexible and better prepared. And we're doing that by pivoting the methods we use to deliver things, whether it be virtual meetings, our spaces are cleaner, we're developing new services to respond to new needs, and we're having these new way of connecting. Has anyone done any of the virtual Phoenix Museum of Art exhibitions? Because they're really cool. So I encourage you to do that as well. Channels. So now we have new channels that we're going through to deliver our services. And we may even have a different supply chain. So if you have, if you're a food bank and you're accustomed to getting food from grocery stores, well, you probably don't have that anymore, but you might be getting it from restaurants. You might be getting it from restaurant suppliers. So diversifying your supply chain. You have new uses for the products and services that you currently have because you may have new customers for it. And then the way that we're distributing our services is totally different. I know of counseling that's being done through video and group counseling that's being done through Facebook groups. We have even some homeless services. So we have a client in the homeless services space that is using video to keep their staff safe. So the homeless person comes into their building, sits in front of a computer that's ready for video to speak with their case manager. And so that is just an amazing way that they're pivoting and leveraging their technology talent, leveraging employee talents in new ways. You guys might be really great at something, social media or this whole TikTok thing, which is totally new to me. So you guys might be lending your talents to your organization in ways you never thought you would before. You might be identifying talent gaps. Like, now we need somebody that's really good with technology. What are we going to do? And now this whole remote work zone, you talked about, you heard Thomas talk about giving additional PTO. Like, there's some really great new creative employee benefits coming out of this. So everyone is being flexible and creative. We talked about new products and services, and the changing needs in the environment that we have right now, maybe causing your organization to pivot away what you've always done and instead focus on this for this short period of time. So how are we going to be not just different, but better? We're going to increase our liquidity, 3 to 6 months of liquid, unrestricted net assets, Luna. We're going to monitor what we're doing. Creating a dashboard is an excellent way. It's a visual way for you guys to keep score. And we're going to talk about keeping score later this afternoon. Flexibility, making sure that you're constantly being flexible, you're not rigid in your methods or in your thinking, and that you're planning. You have a tested plan for business continuity. And if you guys need a plan template, we have one on our website. My last quote, an investment in knowledge pays the best interest, and you guys are doing that today. If you need to get in touch with us, you can find us at these locations. I'll talk about our new education coming in the next session. And then if you need anything, we have some great resources on our website. We have some great training there that's free that you can go and sign up for. So fourleafaccounting.com and ruleyourresults.com. All right, I'm over, but I'm done. Any questions?